That down. Let's move on to this, shall we? The post-mortem on Borderlands continues, which is weird, doing a post-mortem on a film that has literally just finished its first weekend. But again, Borderlands is a movie that cost $115 million to make and they made $8.8 million of an opening weekend. Like half of what the projections were, and the projections were already depressingly low. Now, I gave my quick review of it. I don't think it's the worst film of the year. I think there are a couple of films, including Madam Web and a few others, that were worse, but it's not a good movie. It's a bad movie. Borderlands is a bad movie, but again, not the worst thing. It's not, I wouldn't describe it as offensively bad, just plain bad. Anyway, we've seen lots of bad movies do well at the box office, or at least better than this, right? We've all seen horrible movies that have done better at the box office. So I thought we'd take a little bit to talk about why it did so badly. Now, I was thinking about this the other day, and I want to see what some other people thought. And I came across a really good article, actually, by the good folks over at Slash Film, who clearly had the same idea as me, but they got to it first. And they put out an article called 5 Reasons Why Borderlands Became the Bomb That It Is. And I thought, instead of just kind of regurgitating my own, what I thought would be neat to do is take this Slash Film article and go over their 5 points and talk about where we may agree or disagree with their thoughts. Their first point about why Borderlands bombed so bad is an obvious one. The critics and the audiences hated it. I mean, in other words, it's just not a good movie. Again, we have seen bad movies do pretty good at the box office before, so it's not the only reason why, but I mean, you can't ignore the fact that it got blasted by the critics and the audiences who didn't see it. No good word of mouth. I think it got a D+ cinema score, which I honestly can't remember the last time I heard about a big wide release movie getting a D+ on cinema score. Usually like a C is considered abysmal, but it got a D+. So that clearly did not help the movie at all.
It is a D+.
It is a D+. All right. So their first point, saying that because it was a bad movie, the critics and the audience didn't like it. Absolutely. It's not the only reason, because other bad movies have done well, but that is definitely one of the reasons. I totally agree with that. The next point that they make is this. Borderlands was a big mess behind the scenes. And I think this is 100% accurate. I think of all their points, this is the most astute. And I actually want to read what Slash Film wrote here because I think it's worth noting. It's worth looking at what happened behind the scenes when it comes to understanding how such a roundly disliked, very expensive movie with so much A-list talent, Oscar-winning talent, by the way, managed to find its way to theaters in the first place. Truth be told, the signs were there for anybody who was looking. Filming on Borderlands wrapped more than 3 years ago in June of 2021. It is exceptionally rare for blockbuster film to just sit collecting dust for that amount of time. Tim Miller from Deadpool was eventually brought on board to oversee extensive reshoots while Eli Roth was busy making Thanksgiving. It was messy, to put it lightly. Heck, even Craig Mazin from Chernobyl and The Last of Us fought to get his name taken off the film, despite writing the original draft of the screenplay. That's a bad sign. So the point they're making is that, okay, it was a terrible, terrible film, but also there was all this drama for so long, for so many years, that it had to turn a lot of people off even before the first trailer came out. And I 100% agree. There are so many people I talk to interacting either on social media or emailed me at the website saying, like when Borderlands trailers first started coming out, I say, wait, I thought Borderlands was like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, a lot of people thought that. And then hearing about the director's stuff and like, it just became ridiculous. So the first thing they're saying is because they thought the movie was bad. I agree. Second thing, their second point is that all the behind the scenes drama hurt it. And I think 100% it did. Third thing they point out, that Borderlands faced unexpectedly stiff competition. Now, what they are not saying is that Borderlands would have made $50 million if it wasn't for Deadpool and Twisters and It Ends With Us and, Despicable Me still being out there somewhere. But I think you can't ignore the fact that you have so much well-received, successful stuff out there right now did hurt. Now, I'm not saying it would have made $50 million without it, but instead of making 8.8, it could have made 11, could have made 12, a little bit more, 15, 20% more. But as you see, you're starting piling on all these reasons, right? The critics hated it, the audience hated it, huge behind-the-scenes drama, and it faced stiff competition. So I agree with that point. Next, this is a huge one. Lionsgate was very conservative with its marketing on this movie. Guys, listen. When you have a movie that costs north of $100 million to make, it is extremely rare to see a marketing budget that's like $50 million. It's usually more than that. Avengers Endgame had a marketing spend of over $200 million. Nobody expected that for Borderlands. But Borderlands spent a paltry $30 million on marketing this film. $115 million film. And they spent $30 million on marketing it. Now, again, am I saying if they had spent $70 million on marketing that this movie would have made $50 million? No. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is that the results would have been better. They would have been better. I think if they had done a proper marketing campaign, you might have seen a $20 million opening. Like, seriously, I think this could have had a significant impact. But the trailers that they did put out were pretty bad. And the amount of public awareness they raised was also pretty poor. They really spent nothing on the marketing on this. So there's that as well. Jose Duran in the live chat saying, I only saw one trailer for Borderlands. Yep. And you're not alone. You're not alone. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Gametime. My wife Ann and I love going to events, whether they're comedy shows, concerts, an LA Lakers game. I mean, just the other night we went to go see Ronnie Chang and it was awesome. We love having these new experiences and new memories. And our sponsor Gametime makes getting tickets for concerts and events faster and easier, even if you don't buy tickets right away. Because prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to the show start time. With killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying event tickets. I couldn't believe how easy and most importantly, intuitively, the entire app works. Finding the event I was looking for couldn't have been easier. The way it lays out the map of the venue, letting you know exactly where the seats are that you're looking for, and how easy the process was to choose and buy those tickets. So don't worry if you think you're too late to get tickets to that big event you and your friend want to go to. They have last minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. So guys, take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Campea for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Campea, C-A-M-P-E-A, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. The fifth thing they said is a thing I don't agree with. This is the one point they're bringing up that I don't agree with. They're saying video game adaptations are still tough to crack. That's true. I mean, video game adaptations are a tough nut to crack. History has proved that. But is that why the film did badly? Not at all. If that were the case, nobody would have gone to see the Mario Brothers movie. If that was the case, nobody would go to see the Sonic movies. If that was the case, nobody would have watched Fallout or Last of Us. Are video game adaptations tough to crack? 100% they are. Did that have anything to do with why so few people went to go see the movie? No. I don't agree with that. Now, you could have put this under the category of they made a bad movie, right? Point number one, that the critics and audiences hate it. You could say maybe one of the reasons the critics and audiences hate it because, hey, it's tough to make a video game adaptation. But as its own standalone reason as to why it wasn't successful, I disagree with that. So, to summarize, I agree with the first 4 points. That, it failed to impress the critics and the audience. That hurt it. The fact that it was a huge mess behind the scenes, that definitely hurt it. The fact that it faced stiff competition in the box office, that definitely hurt it. And 100% the fact that Lionsgate went with such a weak marketing campaign for it, and they skimped out on it pretty much. Which I think tells us that Lionsgate never believed this movie could make money. Because clearly they believed if they put $70 million into the marketing campaign, the movie wouldn't even make back the marketing budget. So clearly Lionsgate never believed in the movie either. It leads us to the point where we have to start asking the question, should they have done what David Zaslav did with Batgirl?
Right.
Would they have actually come out more financially ahead if they just realized, listen, this movie is a disaster. We don't think anybody's going to go to see it. We don't want to put any real marketing money into it because we don't even think we will make enough money at the box office just to make back the marketing budget. At that point, they should have done what David Zaslav had the foresight to do and just pulled the plug on the movie. And say, look, we took a swing at it, we tried it, but we didn't end up with a good product, and we're going to lose more money if we put it in theaters than if we just pull the plug on it and take the tax write-off on it.
Do you think it's because the stars that were attached to it made it difficult to do that? Because of Batgirl, we still had like a really unknown actress like in the lead, where you have Kevin Hart, Kate Blanchett, Jack Black. You got all
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, you got all these heavy hitters involved. Was that something that kind of...
That's a good question. Could that have hindered them from pulling the plug?
Right.
I got to assume the answer to that is yes. It probably did. I mean, they still should have done it. And I have a feeling Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Hart, and Kate Blanchett probably would have preferred them just to pull the plug on this thing. But I think you're absolutely right. That probably was one of the things that gave them a little bit of pause.
Or maybe even gave them a little bit of hope that maybe it might make money from these names.
Maybe. I mean, but let's Jamie Lee Curtis is an icon.
Right.
But it's not like she's a huge box office draw. Right? So I don't know. Now, the one thing I need to address this, I put this in the John Campea Show newsletter yesterday, but I want to address it here because I've seen some people bringing it up in the live chat, saying that the reason it didn't do well is because Kate Blanchett was too old to play the role of Lilith, or the movie didn't do well because Kevin Hart was there. Guys, listen to me. Is there an argument to be made that Kate Blanchett, who is currently 55 years old, was maybe too old to play the role of Lilith? I think there's an argument to be made for that. I do. I think there's an argument to be made for that. Is there an argument to be made that Jamie Lee Curtis, who's in her 60s, playing Tannis, who I believe in the game is like supposed to be in her mid-30s, was she too old to play that? Yeah, I think so. Sure. I think there's an argument to be made for that. But here's the problem. If you had replaced Jamie Lee Curtis, and if you had replaced Kate Blanchett, 2 Academy Award winners, do you think that would have made the movie any better? No. It's still the same lines of dialogue. It's still the same story. The exact same things would have happened on screen, except you've got Academy Award level actresses doing it. And by the way, I thought Kate Blanchett did pretty well as the character.
I mean, that also requires that everyone going to see it knows Borderlands. I'm a gamer. I don't know the Borderland lore. I'm familiar with the game. I've never really played it. So I wouldn't have even known the ages of those characters. I mean, that's really putting a lot of onus on like, oh, there's just going to be millions of Borderland fans coming to see this movie. I just don't see that as
And here's the thing, too. The problems with this movie, of which there are many, none of the problems was Kate Blanchett.
Right.
So if you put in a younger, less talented actress, you just would have wound up with an even worse movie. And as far as I've seen a lot of people in live chat hating on Kevin Hart, but guess what? Kevin Hart didn't write the movie.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, guys. Just because a comedian is playing a role doesn't mean they come up with the jokes and their lines, and then they submit their lines to the person writing the script.
And by the way, his character didn't even have many jokes. It wasn't even that comedic of a role.
Yeah,
I mean, he was in Jumanji and the second Jumanji that made 900
made
800
huge
million.
amounts of money. The one he did with Dwayne Johnson about the CIA Central
Intelligence.
Well, the one where Dwayne Johnson was a fat kid in high school kid. That one did look. But the problem with the movie wasn't Kevin Hart. The problem was it was terrible dialogue, terrible scenes, terrible story. And if you had just replaced Kevin Hart with somebody else saying the exact same lines and doing the exact same things, you would have still ended up with an exactly the same bad movie.
And I'm sorry, did that article mention why he was on the show for 3 years? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Because that's strange. That's very strange. Why didn't they just go with it?
They wanted to do more reshoots and they never found a release window. And I think they debated whether or not to release it at all.
I see.
Okay.
So-
When I say the first Jumanji, guys, I meant the first of the rebooted, and then there was a second
Yes,
of the rebooted.
not the Robin
I get
Williams
it's not
one.
Robin Williams.
So listen, I think this article over on Slash Film is definitely worth a read. I agree with 4 out of the 5 points. I think they're very well made. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Not why was Borderlands bad, but why did it do so badly at the box office when we've seen, frankly, worse movies, i.e. Madam Web, do better at the box office? Madam Web did much better at the box office than this did. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.